Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. I'm Dan Roos. I'm with the Pet Care Innovation Prize. And before we hand it over to Eric and the panel, I just want to introduce a couple of folks here. Hopefully you got a chance to meet two of our startups here in the Pacific Northwest. We've got two companies that are doing some pretty cool stuff and kind of indicative of the overall health of the pet care startup space and what's going on there. We're going to give them a chance to tell a little bit about what's going on, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the Pet Care Innovation Prize, where we offer cash and business support to early stage pet care companies. I just want to let you know we're videotaping this. This is going to be online afterwards. Apparently Ollie is not happy that Ollie is not on the panel. We offer business support and cash in a competition. You can go to petcareinnovationprize.com to see more about that. But let's start with, we've got, as I said, two startups here, one representing what's going on in the tech space and pet on the consumer side, and one on the B2B side. And we're going to start with Sarah. And here you go, Sarah. If you'd step out in front and tell us a little bit about what you're doing with LocalDawgs.
Okay, hi. My name is Sarah Tantillo, and I'm co-founder and CEO of LocalDawgs, the pet sitting exchange app. We connect pet owners with each other to exchange pet sitting instead of money. The pet owners are the pet sitters. I was having a really hard time finding someone to watch my dog while I was traveling for work or going on vacation. That didn't cost a lot of money, and when I realized that I had this problem with a lot of other people, I decided to do something about it. So I launched the app about a year ago in the Portland, Oregon area. That's where I'm from. And right now we have about 851 members actively using the app.
Great. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
Let's give her a hand. And next we have Dennis, who's with REX, and they sell and service the veterinary business. Take it away, Dennis.
Hi, my name is Dennis Hopkins from REX Veterinary Services, and want to bring this to everybody's attention. At one point in our life as pet owners, we have that unfortunate day of driving Sammy or Fluffy to the vet for their final trip. It's something that none of us like. But luckily, there's a new form of veterinary medicine coming online that specializes in end-of-life care, mainly in-home hospice and in-home pet euthanasia. The problem is, who is funneling in to meet that demand are not large corporations, but veterinarians that are just simply passionate about helping people and pets through this difficult time. The vets have everything that they need except a few things. Number one, the knowledge and experience to make a successful practice. And number two, a set of business solutions to make the practice run streamlined and efficient. REX Veterinary Services focuses on providing the experience and the know-how to these vets, as well as a set of business solutions tailored specifically for their needs.
All right. Thanks, Dennis. And since Eric is right now dealing with Ollie, I'm going to go ahead and start with the panel discussion here, and we're going to start down here. And if each of you guys, you all have a different interesting perspective on either pets or tech and pets, and just give a little bit about what you're about and where you're from and kind of what your perspective is.
My name is Andrew Bleiman. I'm general manager for Furbo Dog Camera in North America. We're the most popular pet camera in 11 countries, including the US. I'm based right here in Seattle, conveniently located in the heart of Amazon, which is our #1 sales channel. I didn't come prepared with a perspective, but suffice it to say, selling pet tech hardware is hard. It's hard to build, it's hard to make money on it, and it's hard to market. So to the extent possible, it's about finding a real problem that you're solving.
Great, thanks.
Hi, my name's Tom Arnold. I'm the founder and CEO of PetHub. So what we do is we work with municipalities across the United States. We're in over 250 communities right now as their pet license. So we help those municipalities replace their old metal tags from the Civil War era, essentially, with new ID tags that link to an online profile. That allows us to get the animal home quickly and safely, which saves the municipalities money, but more importantly, gets the animal back home quickly and safely before they can become injured. We're bringing in about 600 to 800 pets per day onto our site, so we're starting to see some engagement, which is fantastic, and that's what we're doing.
And started here in Seattle, right?
Yes, started in Seattle.
Hi, I'm Nicole Mitchell. I'm with American Pet Products Association. So we're a trade association for pet product manufacturers. We have about just over 1,300 members, and we put on Global Pet Expo every year in Florida. And, you know, as far as we're not specifically looking for pet tech, but just any way we can help any area of the pet industry. We're always looking for new ways to do that. We offer a benefits package to all of our members to help expand business. And a big focus of mine has been looking for international membership. So we currently have members in over 40 countries, and our show brings in buyers from over 80 countries. So, Global Pet Expo, and it's in Orlando, Florida, typically in March, except in 2020 when it will be at the end of February. I'm getting heart palpitations thinking about it, but yeah, so comes up faster than you think. So.
Thanks, Nicole.
Hi, I'm Bill Broun. I'm with Nestle Purina. So I wear a couple different hats for the company. I'm involved with mergers and acquisitions. I also run a group of folks that really help us think about how do we engage more directly with consumers. So everything from our social to our branded websites to D2C, kind of a mishmash. And then more specific to this evening, I'm one of the folks who set up 9 Square Ventures, which is early stage corporate venturing where we actually invest in early stage companies directly. And out of that grew the Innovation Prize, which deals with even earlier stage companies, where we're running the prize to really drive and help promote innovation within the pet category, be tech or otherwise. We've had 3 different classes come through the Innovation Prize. It involves a week-long boot camp in St. Louis, which has been well received. Dan is a huge part of that, thank you. And thank you to the APPMA, where we, at Global this year down in Orlando, we actually held the event where we announced the winner, the grand prize winner. So there's 5 folks that come in for the boot camp, and then of those, that's in January, and then of those, one of those was chosen in Orlando for the grand prize. So thank you guys for that. You were a wonderful partner, so appreciate it. And happy to be here. Look forward to chatting.
Thanks. My name is Erick Eidus. My company's PupPod, and you may have seen Ollie, who is my dog, in the back of the room playing the game. Basically, what we've built is a high-tech puzzle game for dogs. So there's a toy that has a bunch of technology inside, and it connects to your smartphone, and you can control the difficulty of the game. And when the dog interacts with the toy at the right time, then they earn treats from a Bluetooth-connected dispenser. And the game keeps getting harder, so they keep being challenged, and they have to work for their food. So the smarter your dog gets, the harder the game gets to keep them engaged. And really just saw that there was going to be an opportunity for, you know, internet-connected dog products, which didn't exist several years ago. The category is starting to exist, and it's hard to imagine that it's not going to be pervasive at these trade shows coming up.
So Erick is also one of our past winners of the Pet Care Innovation Prize, actually one of our first class. We've now had 15 winners of the Pet Care Innovation Prize. The PCIP, we call it for short, you can find out more information at petcareinnovationprize.com. The prize offers $10,000 cash to 5 winners per year, a boot camp to learn about the pet care industry and introductions to a lot of people, a trip to Global Pet Expo that we've talked about, and a lot of other great things to meet lots of people in the industry. So it's a great opportunity. If you have any questions, see me afterwards or go to petcareinnovationprize.com. But Erick's role here is also to kind of facilitate the conversation and moderate it. And what we really wanted to talk about today was, how does pet and tech get integrated together? What are the opportunities there? What are the challenges? And what's exciting in the space? And I'm going to turn it over to Erick now.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Well, I think one of the fun questions to start with, it's a little bit out there, is what are the opportunities for technology to change the pet industry? Because at least coming from a real tech background, I saw the pet industry as just ripe for disruption. That may be a dirty word, it may not sound great, but it's a lot of low tech or no tech products. And when I worked on smartphones and early smart devices back in the beginning of my career, nobody would have thought you'd give an iPad to a 2-year-old. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find a parent that has an iPad and a 2-year-old and they haven't put the two together. And so the technology, there's a ton of potential for how we can build better technology for the pets that we love. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys, maybe start with Andrew and come back around. Over the next 2 to 3 years, how do you see the opportunities and how technology is going to change the products that we give our pets?
Yeah, so I think that's a big question and probably a lot of different answers in a lot of different directions. I can talk about two. I can talk about one that Furbo's pursuing currently. We learned about a year ago that about 2,500 people die in fires every year, and about 45,000 dogs die in fires every year. And it's because a fire alarm goes off in the middle of the night and you happen to hear it and you get out. A fire alarm goes off in the middle of the day and there's a pet in the house and it can't leave. So just at a fundamental level, there's low-hanging fruit to use technology to alert the owner or alert emergency services that there's a pet at home that needs to get out fast. So I like that one because it's now. So it's something we're pursuing. And then I think more broadly speaking, I think there are tremendous opportunities to marry the tremendous amount of data that comes from smart devices that are connected to pets with medical records, with health diagnostics in general. We all know pets can't tell you when something's wrong. There are a lot of conditions that can be identified early if you're just paying attention to things like breathing rate at rest. Humans are not good at that, and they're not diligent at it, but cameras are excellent. So I certainly expect and hope to see a lot of sort of transformative, unlocked innovation in that area in the next few years.
Yeah, I would jump on to continue on with that thought of what you're talking about, Andrew, where there's so much data that's out there. With cameras, we're gathering lots of information there, with everything that the veterinarians have, with a Fitbit type device for the dogs, which is Whistle, just tons and tons of data. So that's basically, this is going to sound self-serving, but that's basically what we're doing with PetHub, is trying to provide this one place, this one ecosystem, this one data warehouse of where you can keep all of that information. And so I think that's a big opportunity for people out there is how do we get everybody to work together to have this one place, this one hub, if you will, where you're pushing all of this data and then providing it back to people in a very safe and secure and responsible way. So being at Microsoft, they really beat it into your head about PII, personally identifiable information. You keep that stuff safe as much as possible, but at the same time, there's so much rich information that could be so helpful on so many different fronts. How can we figure out how to provide that data in an anonymized way, in a safe way, and further help our industry with all the data that we're gathering?
So I'm sure if you've read any sort of article about the pet industry within the last year, you realize that millennials have kind of surpassed the baby boomers as far as pet owners. So considering it's a generation that's just so comfortable in this space, it doesn't surprise me that this would be an area that's going to be expanding exponentially over the course of the next few years. So it's I was actually speaking with someone from membership just earlier, and who was saying that she saw just in the last year an uptick in some of these, like you were saying, very low tech as far as the products that we see coming through, but she's been seeing just a few that are coming through that are employing more technology than before. So I think that from our perspective, that it's something that we're looking to support. And looking more into as far as, because we've historically only supported those, and I want to say that we've only supported low tech companies, but that's just what has been out there. So there's certainly that interest from our side, and being that we gather a lot of this data and how you guys are going to be using in the future. I think that it's really just, like you said, the usage of the cameras and things have just opened the doors to so many things. So from our perspective, it's certainly something interesting that we're keeping an eye on, and see where that goes. There you go.
I'd echo a lot of what you've heard. We can say definitively, and have spent staggering amounts of money through our marketing departments to define that, among other things, understanding a pet's health is one of the number one unmet needs for consumers. So they're a secret that we spent lots of money for that I'll just give you guys for free. Now, the truth of the matter is, if you've had kids, that first year or two of a baby's life where they cry, and as a young parent, you panic because you have no idea what to do. And you go, are they hot? Are they cold? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Are they wet? Are they dirty? Are they tired? Are they grumpy? Are they, and you literally just try stuff. Well, that's 10 years with your average dog and 15 plus with your average cat, because not only do they not tell you what they're feeling or how they're feeling, they're actually genetically predisposed to hide if they're not feeling well. And so, whether it's cameras, whether it's devices on or around the pet, whether it's cognitive tools, our mission at Purina is to help pets and parents live happier lives together. And, that is both altruistic and, frankly, the longer pets live, they eat more food. So we like that too. But we also think there's things that can be done from a technology perspective to get more pets into more homes. I mean, there is hard scientific evidence that people with pets are happier. They have less stress. They live longer. They are healthier. I mean, these are hard, real things that can really help impact people's lives. And unfortunately, there's still pets being euthanized today. Through Pet Finder, we're trying to solve that. But the opportunity to get more pets into more people's lives leveraging technology, it is staggering the number of vectors against which technology, and you've heard 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different versions of how tech is helping with pets' lives today. And I'm lucky enough to have talked with hundreds of other folks who are doing really cool stuff. Some of it works, some of it won't, just like any other company, but it's a huge opportunity.
And I obviously come from a perspective of the device that the dog's interacting with, and this opportunity to build smarter, more interesting products for dogs in the first stage, but we'll get around to cats and lots of other animals. The challenge, I think, which you wouldn't think of, most people don't hear the term user experience for animals. And so when you start putting technology and devices, you have to think about the user experience that they're going through, and how do you make that intuitive? Because the same way that you're going to just go delete an app if it's not useful on your phone, if it's not intuitive, you can't figure it out, your animal or your pet is just going to not interact with this device, and then you're going to be kind of bummed that you spent money on it, and that's not going to work very long. So coming up with a user experience for animals, I think, is a big challenge. So for the entrepreneurs that are out there that are thinking about what kind of business you might want to do in the pet industry, I do think that that's a huge area for disruption, because the no-tech, low-tech toys don't really have a big user experience component. Either they roll it around or they get the food out and they kind of trial and error it. But with software, there's a huge opportunity to be seeing what the animal's doing and adapting the product to their interaction, to their mental play style. But there's also huge things you have to think about in terms of making sure pets don't swallow batteries or printed circuit boards and things like that. So the technology, has its pros and its cons. That if other people have that kind of interest in their pet entrepreneurship idea, those are some seeds to plant to think about. And you see a lot of companies coming through that apply to the Pet Care Innovation Prize. What are the big trends that you're seeing in how these entrepreneurs are trying to leverage technology to, it sounds bad, I have to use the D word, but if they're not disrupting the industry, they're not creating an opportunity for, a high multiple, so they got to figure out some way to leverage technology to disrupt this industry. What are the trends that you're seeing?
What's really fun and cool is almost across the board. I mean, we heard about an app to pair people that are looking to take care of their dog or their cat over the weekend or while they're on vacation. Problem my family faces on a regular basis. How many people thought that the idea of basically Uber for dog walkers was going to generate a couple companies that are worth, according to their investors, well over $1.5 billion when you add them all up? More power to them. They may be 100% on. I'm not saying that they are or they aren't. I'm just saying 5-10 years ago, you would have been laughed out of the room if you had said that. But that's the opportunity in this space. I mean, the emotional connection people have with their pets is huge. And when you have that emotional component, when you think about what these stupid things have done for us, good and bad, and I attach to this thing as bad as anybody, so I'm flogging myself here. But the fact of the matter is, there's very little of that when it comes to your dog or your cat. We actually have an app on for the iPad. You talked about the iPad. There's catfishing. So you can get an app that you put on your iPad and little fish swim by and the cat slaps it and it turns it into bubbles. They kind of dig it. Not saying that that's the greatest application of technology in pets that you could possibly have, but it is pervasive, is my point. I think there is almost every aspect of what we see with pets that can be impacted by this, just as our lives in almost every aspect have been impacted by this.
So I am the millennial pet owner, and working in this industry was just kind of the cherry on top. But I mean, just speaking from my own perspective, I travel for business. Anything that can help make my life easier is something I'm looking towards. And that is pretty much the theme with all my friends who have postponed having children in favor of having dogs and or cats. And anything, like you said, our phones are such a huge part of our day-to-day lives now. I couldn't imagine not having my phone on me for any, plethora of, ways to tap into something useful and helpful. And it's become such a big part. I have my dog's, I have her information about her vet records on my phone. Anything I can just do to make it easier. And that's, I think, what everyone is just really looking for at this point. How can they take those, day-to-day products that have made all of our lives easier and just kind of use that at home, you apply it to our pets and really just, kick that off and make it a lot easier on our lives. So it's interesting space to see so many products that are trending and that, towards that area of the business. It's exciting to see both from, the business perspective, but definitely as a pet owner. So.
And Tom, your company started off using QR codes to start grabbing some of the digitizing some of the identity information to go into your system. What do you see as the next, over the next maybe 3 years, or even look out further, 5 or 10 years? How do you see the technology allowing your company to grow into your vision, along your vision?
So beyond the QR code, beyond what we originally started with, the platform was created where it was technology agnostic. So QR codes was what we started with because a lot of people knew what it was. It has the web address, it even has a phone number, and then you could just read the ID to a real person on the phone. Or we're going to add the robot piece to that so somebody could actually read it to an automated assistant kind of thing. But the next piece that you see a lot of people using is, or starting to become aware of, is NFC, near field communication. So anybody who's ever paid for a coffee and they've tapped their credit card on the machine, that's using a little chip called an NFC chip. So we actually filed a patent on that about 5 years ago and came up with the tags, but nobody knew what NFC was back then. So we were waiting until Apple finally added it into their phones and Samsung added it into their phones, and still people don't know exactly what it is. But the cool thing is that we designed it so that it doesn't matter if it's the QR code or the NFC or whatever the v.next is of connecting, being able to encode a web address, and then your phone recognizes it and jumps out to our site to pull that data. That was the whole idea, was to keep it really simple. But as far as the next generation for us, that was just the beginning. That was just getting people to come onto the site and provide data that they felt comfortable providing to us because it was about helping their animals. The next piece, we started off with the tagline of protect, share, nurture. And then we moved to modern pet identification just to kind of keep it really simple and focused. But the grand idea of PetHub, not Pet Get Your Home Fast, but PetHub, was to create this ecosystem. And so we've got the protect piece down, and we're continuing to turn that crank because we picked that lock, but the share piece is the next piece that we're working on right now. How do I make it where I can safely share my data? I was talking to Sarah about her really cool pet walking app, and I was like, I want to make it so that if we already have a PetHub person who's looking for a dog walker in their city, that we can say, hey, have you heard of Sarah's company? And then they go and they try it out, and we say, you can safely share, we trust her, you can share your data with her, and we're happy to. We look at it as your data. It's not our data. We want to make you safe, make it easy for you to safely share that with the cool providers that you want to share it with. So that's basically the piece we're going to. And then the nurture piece, that was the share piece, and then the nurture piece is, how do we help everybody come together as a community? And you hear the term ecosystem thrown around so much, but that's exactly where we're going. And I'm sorry, you used the word pervasive earlier, Bill, and I was going pervasive. I just could not get that out of my head because I was thinking that cat thing. Anyway, so it's that ecosystem is pervasive, and but that's what we're trying to create as well, to make it so that if I get a new puppy and I'm looking for play date times because I'm trying to socialize my puppy, I want to find that. If I want to go and do the coolest new thing of monitoring my pet or having the camera on my pet, I want to be able to find your cool app or your cool product. And my dog is bored at home. I want to use Dog TV, or I want to use Erick's PupPod because it's the coolest thing. So that's the progression of it. It's just always peeling that onion. So
more
many
of a
opportunities.
marketplace to make your user base into a marketplace.
Exactly, a marketplace. We haven't called it a marketplace because we're trying not to do the handling of the money of it. We're just more trying to make sure that people can find each other and connect. We likened it very much way back when to, if anybody's pre-Airbnb, there was it's still out there called couchsurfing.com, where you can go and stay on somebody's couch. They're not currently traveling, but they're a traveler and they get you, and you've both reviewed each other. So I know that you're not going to murder me while I'm sleeping on your couch, and you know that I'm not going to murder you when I come into your house because you've reviewed each other. And so that's kind of the idea that we started with the couch surfing piece of bringing this community together and allowing people to safely engage with each other.
Great, great. And I queued up a question I want to ask to Andrew here. There was recently a Comcast study. It really just came out during the last couple, I think it was like a week ago. They interviewed 1,000 pet parents that had their camera in the home, and it turned out 2 out of 3 of the pet owners were using the camera to check in their pets during the day. So it's the main use of this camera to be in your home. And 94% of pet parents said it was the best part of their day, checking in on their pet. Now, that's today. And to some degree, it kind of makes me feel like the days of having a pager and having to go return calls at like a payphone, that you can just check in on your pet and there's really not this real-time connectivity. But if you roll forward 10 years and think about the rate of innovation that is going to happen in your product category, where do you think this is going? Because we've just scratched the surface.
So first question here, who even knew Comcast had cameras? Did you know? Do you work for Comcast? I'm sorry if you do. Okay. I came across that study and the revelation for me was Comcast has cameras? Yeah. That's interesting. Anyway, maybe we should talk to them. We have a dedicated dog camera. We call it a dog camera because it has intelligence that is specific to dogs. We know when your dog's active as distinct from a cat or a human or anything else, and a bark is distinct from your kid or a meow or whatever else it might be. And those sort of specialized bioacoustics and computer vision are why people choose our camera versus a general purpose streaming camera, right? There are a lot of options out there for general purpose streaming cameras. And a lot of people choose them. That's our primary competition, by the way. It's not other pet cameras, it's a $30 Wise camera. So what we found pretty quickly is Furbo provides peace of mind. People are anxious about leaving their pet home alone. It provides joy as well, but for a lot of people, there's real anxiety. Is my pet okay? And if you're just checking on your pet, right, it can get a little obsessive. And it doesn't mean just because you checked on it now that 10 minutes later, everything's still okay. And so this is why we realized pretty early on that you needed pet-specific intelligence and notifications, right? So we're going to alert you and record a 10-second clip when your pet is active, when it's barking, a number of other scenarios as well, so you're notified, so you don't have to sort of be checking all the time. Where do I think this is going? We ask ourselves, what would you want from a human who is home with your pet, right? Like that's the ideal, right? If you can't be there, you want someone else to be there. It's a neighbor, it's a friend, it's family. So what are all the things you'd want from that sitter? What sort of Maslow's hierarchy of need when it comes to the pet, right? And so first and foremost, it's safety, and then it's activity and, sort of freedom from boredom. Up the chain, maybe it's like a walk, right? Like let it outside, right? And so, where do I see it going? I see a home that makes sense of what your pet's up to throughout the house, whether that's sound, whether that's cameras, that takes steps to first notify you when something is amiss or you should be aware of something, but then also takes actions with your permission to take care of that animal, right? So ultimately, that includes letting it outside, right? That includes, feeding it, and whoever invents the way to safely walk a dog remotely, like that's the multi-billion-dollar grail. But we'll get there.
So, one of the benefits of working for a large company, every month I get a report that lists all of the U.S. patents that were issued that month in a whole host of stuff, but all pretty much pet related. There was a patent issued this month for a robotic dog walker. I'm not sure about the design, but it has issues. So there is something out there. There's somebody working on it. So. I'm not saying I'm rushing to buy it.
Well, just to riff on that, we've used the PupPod with people who have a staircase to put the toy at one end of the staircase and put the dispenser at the other end of the staircase, and you have a doggy stairmaster. So you may not be walking in the traditional sense, but there's lots of ways to exercise your pet inside. And I think where you guys are going, and where I also believe there's a huge opportunity, is for, and where we're also going, obviously, is that pets will be first-class citizens in a connected home. So 10 years from now, when I look out 10 years from now, there's going to be two things that don't exist today. One is there's going to be a whole connected home ecosystem where pets aren't just being monitored, they're actually participants. They're using the home in a connected way with technology. And the other thing is that at your conference, there won't be any pieces of plastic and plush toys with squeakies in them. Everything is going to have technology inside and it's going to be connected to platforms. That's my vision. I might be wrong, but 10 years from now, I just don't see people buying a piece of plastic or a plush toy if there's a better option. And with software and with technology, I think we can create better options. So that's you may disagree, you may agree, but that's give you something to think about. Is there other points you guys wanted to kind of hit on about, maybe inspire some of the people who are watching it at home or here in the audience about how you see technology disrupting the industry, where those opportunities are to drive the disruption?
Well, I just wanted to add on really quickly. So I love your products because my wife and I, whenever we go out of town, we're always asking our pet sitter for proof of life photos. So it's like, text us, where's our current proof of life? And then it's like, okay, is that current? Is there a current, newspaper to kind of prove it for me? But yeah, right. But I think one place you look is just look at our lives as individuals or as raising babies. If you look at the different products that have been created that make our lives easier or make your life easier in dealing with a child, those are trickling down or trickling laterally, because a lot of us look at them as our children, to this industry. So I would say that that's a good place to look, is if you see a really cool, popular product for the infant care, that's probably a pretty easy bet.
Can I add to that? Yeah. So I was going to mention this before. I have a 6.5-year-old daughter, and when she was born, we got an infant cam that monitored her and spat out all sorts of stats on her restfulness and noise, and so when we would go in to meet with our pediatrician, we'd show her that, right? And she'd be like, I don't know what to do with that. But, now 6 years later, we have a number of friends who are pediatricians, and they're like, oh yeah, of course, the XYZ app, the XY, I always ask if they have it, and I always look, right? And so, at least the veterinarians I work with, they're not there yet with that type of data, but to your point, look to that space, and they'll get there soon. So.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. This may sound really generic, but it's really core to how we approach product, and it's start with the consumer, and then start with the consumer, and start with the consumer. Because if you're not solving a problem that matters to consumers, you're wasting your time. It may be really cool, it may be the coolest tech, it may be awesome, it may be this, that, and the other thing. If it doesn't solve a problem, it's not going anywhere. And if the UX, whether it's pet or human, isn't good, it's not going anywhere. We all know this from our own daily lives. Bad UX is death in this day and age. And I know both of those comments are really kind of basic and simple. We see a lot of products that lose their way on that stuff. So I just encourage you guys, if you're working on a product, if you're working on an idea, make sure you ground yourself back to that on a regular basis.
So I think from my perspective, prior to entering the pet industry and working for APA, I was in manufacturing. And I think one of the things that has interested me most is how the pet industry is really just touching so many other industries now. I was just talking to a manufacturer recently in cordage. So something that you really, and high-end cosmetics. And they're seeing requests now from pet product manufacturers in the pet industry, and there's areas being touched that really have never been touched before. So it just makes sense in terms of technology, even more so. There's so much potential in that area. If you're seeing it in these low-tech areas, just the high-tech area just makes so much more sense. I think you're just, like you said, it's about the consumers and what they're touching and what they're using, what they're familiar with, and sky's the limit.
And for the folks in the audience, does anybody have a question that you want to throw at the panel? Yes, sir.
What about market segmentation? Do you see that market segmentation, do you see that different products apply to different groups? Or, I mean, one thing to talk about the pet industry, everybody's got a pet, but how there's certain people, certain pets like prefer different types of products. And how does technology address, since you guys are all up there talking about technology, how do they address those different segments, or is the market that sophisticated yet?
I don't know whether it's that sophisticated yet or not. What I can say is we have a market segmentation for food, dog and cat. We have a market segmentation for treats, dog and cat. We have a market segmentation for litter. That's pretty much cat. We actually, I don't know if we still do. We made a dog litter. It really, it's a bad idea. But fundamentally, yes, market segmentation matters, absolutely. And it can take a lot of different manifestations. I mean, we talked about millennial, so I mean, just basic demographic. But, my mother, not so technical. Other mothers that I know, pretty damn savvy. So I think sometimes we fall into that trap that, it's as easy as, well, millennials get it and everyone else doesn't. Market segmentation, we believe, matters because it gets to what are the underlying, how some people approach nutrition is different than how other people approach nutrition. And so being able to understand and speak to that is why we don't have just one brand of dog food. We are big believers in it. Do we have a tech segmentation? No. I struggle, frankly, with my organization sometimes that if they can't eat it, they kind of struggle with what do we do with it? But we're working on that. So that'd be my thought on that.
Do you guys eat your own dog food?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. I know APPA puts out an incredible report about a lot of the research that you guys do about segmentation and things like that. And it talks about the services, it talks the pet space, it talks about the individual products and things like that. One of the things we focused on was by going into municipalities, then we hit the whole socioeconomic span of everything. We get people who have disposable income and people who don't because they're required to actually go and get a pet license or a rabies tag no matter what. And so that's kind of the nice thing about having a broad segment or a broad audience and then figuring out how to segment from there.
For us, it's absolutely core to how we operate, and if we hadn't, by luck and through work, gotten really smart about exactly who our core customer is from the outset, we wouldn't exist. So without going into all the details of that profile, I'll just give you a quick example. At its most fundamental, our camera is about providing peace of mind, that your pet is safe and comfortable while you're out of the house and typically at work. We find that when families have children, that concern diminishes. It doesn't mean they don't care about their pet, but they're not nearly as anxious about how their pet is when they're at work as they are about their kids, right? So for example, that's something we learned early on, and had we not learned it, we'd be spending piles of money talking to the wrong people, so.
I would just touch on, there was a comment about economic. You might think that tech products play to a certain socioeconomic level. You may think that pet insurance, which is something I was involved in at one point, applies to a certain social. It's an incredibly emotional category. And there are people who will give up a lot to get their pet a different food, to get their pet a camera, to get their pet, and give up things personally. There is a great article, and it kills me because I lost it and I can't find it. But coming out of like the 08, you know, when things were really tough, there was an article that was put out, it was late in the year, and it was, what would you give up to keep taking care of your pet as you have been? And it was, would you give up Starbucks? I mean, massive, you know, absolutely. I'd give up my daily Starbucks in order to keep, I'd give up going out with my spouse on the weekend. I mean, and another great stat, so one of the greats. So you guys have all played the Desert Island game? You know, what are the 10 albums you take to the desert island? What are the, you know. Well, we played that with, would you take your spouse or your pet? Half a year staying home. I'll let you determine which half.
So, Bill, if I could add on to that. So we created a product for animal rescues who are actually going into disaster areas, and it was a triage kind of thing. So it had the QR codes, and you could pop off different things depending on, you know, it's going on the crate for the animal, it's going on the animal itself, it's going to you, so when you come back to reclaim your animal. And we learned so much about that as far as how many people will not leave their homes because they can't find a shelter where they can actually take their pet with them. And so, yeah, to your point, they will give up their lives to that degree.
Well, and so, not to be too heavy here, but we actually are heavily involved in a program, abusive situations. There are a lot of people who remain in abusive situations because of a pet. And very few shelters will accept a pet. And so we are actively working with some of the shelters out there to help make them pet friendly, help them understand how to do that. But again, it just speaks to the strength of this bond. I mean, it is powerful, it is beautiful, it is awesome. But it is, you know, it is a really amazing thing. One of the things we laugh about is when I interviewed with the company 12 years ago, I interviewed with 8 people. Every one of them had 20 plus years with the company. Several of them are still there. Our tenures are crazy at Purina. And the joke is, the pet, if you get into the pet industry, just know you're not getting out. It's like the mafia. You're in, you never get out. So just know that.
I'll add something to kind of what Andrew was saying, that one of the things we learned was that a disproportionately high percentage of people with multiple pets were interested in, if you have multiple pets, it's a high probability that you're really into your pet. So we see a much higher than the average, I think it's like 1.3 or 1 point something pets per person that have, you know, for the pet parents in terms of pets per person. But we easily see that skew way higher for the people who are really into their pet, wanting to spend the disposable income on better products for their pet. I've also seen the same thing Andrew said about when people are like new in a relationship, particularly the millennials, and the pet is their kid, it's a much better time to sell them a technology product than when the kids come along. But that marriage of people who are busy and people who care a lot about their dog, that's a hot intersection. The other thing I'll mention about segmentation that we're trying to go, the path we're trying to go down, and I think it's going to have a big impact on the industry over the next decade, is today you pretty much just segment, if I just focus on dogs for a second, by age, breed, or sex. There's not really much more segmentation about the dog. And we're getting data every time a dog plays a game. We get cognitive data on how that dog learns. So we can start to use an AI framework to segment dogs based on cognition skills and helping parents understand which cognition skills their dog is good or weak at leads to a lot of new ways to approach the pet parent. Because if you're trying to market products to people who have kids, you probably want to understand how you segment the kids, and then the parents kind of self-identify with those segments. And that same trend is going to happen more and more, I think, in the pet industry.
So leapfrog for dogs is what you're saying.
Beyond. Any other questions from the audience? Yes?
I'm sorry, I can't remember your name with 9 Square Ventures. Have you spoken to, I was late, so I apologize. Have you spoken to what types of projects that you're looking at, how you're defining a startup?
So we're really tough. Dogs and cats. I regularly talk, as recently as today, I was approached about vet clinics. Now, we have not invested in vet clinics. It's not something that's probably high on our list, unlike Mars, who actually is a vet services company that also sells pet food in the U.S. at this point. But honestly, what I say to people is, if it has to do with dogs and cats, we'd love to talk to you. It may not seem obvious to you, but I have hundreds of researchers and thousands of people in plants and marketing and other things that spend all day, every day thinking about dogs and cats, and we've been doing it for about 125 years. The good news is that means we're open to a lot of ideas, and it's not always obvious how this particular idea might fit with what we do, but it may make sense to us. So the short version is dogs and cats. And relative to startups, for 9 Square, the actual investment piece, we generally look at companies that are $1 million in revenue or up. We will look below that for significant IP situations. And that's part of why we created the Innovation Prize. Most of the folks who participate in that are well earlier in the process. And again, the intent of all of this, 9 Square really grew out of an acknowledgement that, look, you want to take us on line extensions on dog chow, please bring it. We're really good, and it's going to be really hard to beat us. When you talk about cognitive toys and cameras and ID chips, and we're really not good at that. We're a large company. Really disruptive innovation has not been the hallmark of large corporations, us or anybody. And so this is an acknowledgement that entrepreneurs are really good at this. So let's help them do what they do. Let's support them. Now, I can bring a lot of interesting resources to bear and help that grow, but that's really the intent. And it goes to the fundamental mission of improving lives for, and driving innovation within the category.
Go ahead and wrap us up.
Pass it down.
See, right about now is when it's going to be on. So I'm going to wrap us up. Thank you very much to our panelists. Let's give them a big round of applause. Andrew and Tom and Nicole, Bill and Eric. We're going to be around for a few more minutes. Also, make sure you check out what REX and what LocalDawgs are doing. They're doing some pretty cool stuff. And you have here in Seattle in the Northwest, there is a cluster of really interesting pet care startups. You've got the potential to support each other, and that's why we want to be here. One last plug for the Pet Care Innovation Prize. Check out the website. We offer $10,000 cash, no strings attached, and a boot camp and a bunch of other business development opportunities to grow your business as a way for us to get to know you and to stay in touch. Thanks to everybody from here in Seattle. Thank you to the folks at Thinkspace for a beautiful space with, I don't think we're going to get a better view than this. If you're watching on the video, there's a marina literally right outside the window, people sailing by, and it's amazing that we got to be here today. But thank you very much. Stick around for a little bit of extra conversation, and we look forward to talking to you. Have a great night.